Welcome to Burning of the Midnight Lamp, where we are dissecting music history, album by album, track by track. And we are today discussing the very last track on David Bowie's album The Next Day from 2013, the 14th track called Heat. Remember to like and subscribe if you want to hear our discussions on upcoming albums that we plan to take. We're probably going to do Reality by David Bowie next. And of course, we have already done The Next Day and
Black Star.
Black Star, thank you. And also in the future, we're going to do other albums by other artists as well. We also have a podcast where we discuss the full album at length. And we have a Patreon channel where we have published the podcast along with us listening in on the whole album from start to finish. So please join us there. And in the future you will also get early access to our upcoming episodes, to the albums that we are discussing. My name is Frode.
My name is Tron.
And my name is Chris.
And let's get ahead with the last song on The Next Day, Heat.
Trapped between the rocks, blocking the waterfall. The songs of dust, the world would end. The night was always falling, the peacock in the snow. And I tell myself, I don't know who I am. And I tell myself, I don't know who I am. My father ran the prison. My father ran the prison. I can only love you by hating him more. That's not the truth. It's too big a word. He believed that love is theft, love and war, the theft of love. And I tell myself, I don't know who I am. And I tell myself, I don't know who I am. My father ran the prison. My father ran the prison. But I am a seer. I am a liar. I am a seer. But I am a liar. My father ran the prison. My father ran the prison.
Heat, last song. The album ended with a slow-moving, quite gloomy track.
Yeah, a bit similar, I would say, to the song that ends Heathen, which is called Heathen. Has a very similar vibe to it.
They both have a Scott Walker vibe, I would say.
And both of them starts the title with the first same 4 letters.
That they also do.
It's, I mean, we talked a lot when we discussed the different songs on this album, the sort of juxtaposition between the music, which are often happy and joyful, or that side of it, and the lyrics, which are often dark and gloomy. and here we have the combination where both the lyrics and the music is quite dark and gloomy.
Yeah, you do. And especially comes to mind what he sings. My father ran the prison.
Mm-hmm.
Any idea to that reference, Chris?
No, but the beginning of the song are yet again a very specific literary reference, as with many other tracks on the album. This is a reference to the Japanese poet, playwright, novelist Mishima, who Bowie was clearly influenced by. Big fan of. In 1977, Bowie made a painting of Mishima's head, that hung over his bed in Berlin, which we know from a photo. And this picture also toured the David Bowie's exhibition. It was part of that. Bowie painted portrait of Mishima, and Bowie also owned a sculpture of Mishima, or not by Mishima, but can't remember his name, but a different artist who made a sculpture that was to be Mishima.
Mm.
And the opening is from a novel where they find
Spring Snow.
Spring Snow, yes. They find this dog. But how the lyric continues after this Mishima references, I have no idea.
No,
What?
it is certainly quite obscure lyrics. I tell myself I don't know who I am, and then my father ran the prison reference. We also have a bridge where he sings, "But I'm a seer, I'm a liar. I'm a seer, I'm a liar."
It's also a bit interesting that, because it's the only song that does not have the actual title in the song, because it would make more sense that he called it I Don't Know Myself or something similar. Any idea to
Heat? No.
To Heat?
It's certainly not a song that you're associated with heat. It's a cold and grim atmosphere in a way. I mean, musically more than anything, and the way he sings it definitely seems to be inspired by Scott Walker.
Yeah, it's clearly an reference, or you could almost call it a pastiche of Scott Walker in the opening, at least, and the way he sings it. And it's not the first time he's done that in his career. He's made Scott Walker-ish songs before, like the Motel on One Outside and Sunday on Heathen. Yeah, musically it's clearly inspired by Scott Walker and his style from the end of the 70s and onwards, where he changed direction from the album Night Flights that were inspired by Bowie, and then in turn inspired Bowie again, and Bowie also covered the title track Night Flights. But I think this song, more than anything, resembles the Scott Walker album called Climate of Hunter. But of course it could also be the song The Electricians, the electrician from Night Flights that has the similar opening. And there are other tracks on Climate of Hunter that has this bed of dissonant synth going in the opening, and then you have this bass coming in. That's what puts this in the Climate of Hunter Scott Walker era, and the way he sings it, of course. Can't remember who, but someone in a review of Scott Walker's Tilt once wrote that you're not quite sure if Scott Walker's recording an opera or simply haunting one. And he has that vocal style, though toned down from Walker, but Bowie has that vocal style in the opening. Yeah. But then it changes gear, as does the other Bowie Walker pastiches, like the Motel from One Outside and Sunday from Heathen. They have elements of Walker, but they're not completely Walker-esque. But I think this is the one that's most Walker-esque. But you got this strumming guitar that goes more and more clearly during the song, and the way the song rises in the end, that Walker would not have done that, I think. And in this part of his career, he would have cut it off more abruptly and changed into something we did not expect at all. But this is when the song gets rolling, it's quite predictable as it builds towards the end. More conventional, that's what I'm trying to say, than Walker at his elder.
Certainly more conventional than Walker. I'm not sure I would call it a conventional song.
No.
But compared to Walker, at least his later stage, most would be considered quite conventional, I guess.
Mm.
You mentioned the strumming of the acoustic guitar there, and more than anything, that reminds me of that single version Bowie did of I Can't Read for the Ice Storm, what's it called?
Mm.
Movie in 1997 or 97, I think. Has very similar atmosphere, actually.
Mm.
Yeah.
Sort of
based on the book by Rick Moody, who Bowie wrote this words describing the album for.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was thinking about Andy Warhol, but it's definitely more like the I Can't Read You.
And of course, the strumming on Space Oddity, some versions. The title it baffles me as well, but when you got this bed of synth in the opening, you can also imagine a video or something in the desert where the heat makes the view blurry. But of course, it's as Frode says, icy is also a good association, but somehow suffocating, just crunching chords.
Yeah, and I guess it's also when you are really freezing, you will eventually feel heat and try to undress yourself. So who knows?
Who knows?
Bowie's own 3 words describing this track was tragic, nerve, mystification. Guess that's fitting.
At least it's a nerve.
Mystification is fitting with all of Bowie's songs on this album. So
the lyric, "My father ran the prison," it brings to mind that Bowie once played in a prison movie, Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, that was also set in a Japanese prisoner of war camp during the Second World War. And the soundtrack to that movie, the title song Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence by Richio Sakamoto, it also has a lyrical version with vocals and lyrics by David Sylvian. called Forbidden Colors that also references Mishima. So there's a little connection there.
And Sakamoto played opposite Bowie in the movie as well, where he plays a character that sort of resembles Mishima.
Mhm.
So that's also probably why I mentioned it in the lyrics, maybe. There's another connection there.
And there's also many Mishima-inspired lyrics on Bowie albums in the late 70s.
It is. I mean, he seems to have been not obsessed, but he was a big fan of Mishima in the 70s, as we mentioned already. The painting that he had over his bed in photos from 1977, and it has been said that there are several songs on Lodger and Scary Monsters, Red Sails, Fantastic Voyage, Assassin, Look Back in Anger are all mentioned as songs that are inspired by Mishima and Because You're Young and Teenage Wildlife on Scary Monsters. So it's clearly been in Bowie's mind all the way back since then. And of course, Bowie himself, he immersed himself in Japanese culture. We know that all the way back from quite early in his career. For example, the costumes he had on stage for Ziggy Stardust was inspired by Japanese kabuki theater, and so he was loving Japanese culture, and he even once falsely claimed to have been in Tokyo when Mishima killed himself, and he said this in a dinner party with Arcade Fire in 2005, which is a bit of an odd thing to claim.
Because it was all fake news?
Yeah, as far as we know, he wasn't in Tokyo when he died. So,
Not on tour or anything.
no, this was back in 1970, so he wouldn't have.
Too early.
Too early.
So this is the ending we got. Heat. We did discuss earlier how You Feel So Lonely You Could Die also could have been a fitting ending for this album.
How do you think about Heat as an ending?
It works well as an ending. And if you take the last 4 or 5 Bowie albums, they all have endings that seems like a full stop. That could have been the last ever Bowie song, like Bring Me the Disco King. And that, of course, was the last Bowie song for a decade. Or Heathen the Race. And I'm glad it wasn't Heat, because it's ending on a down note. While I Can't Give Everything Away is a much more uplifting song. But it feels like Bowie references 2 of his important influences, Mishima and Scott Walker, and placing it in the end of his comeback album means that they are still on his mind after all these years. And of course, we've discussed earlier that this is a very long album, and some things could have been edited out, or he could have put in everything and his dog and made a sprawling white album, like double album. And of course, I don't think Heat is the song that people put on repeat when they listen to The Next Day. But it would have felt very out of place on like The Next Day Extra, which is more a collection of lighter songs. This has a weight or gravitas that suits, many of the other songs on the album. It has been a continuous thread in our discussions on this album, how the music is contrasting the lyrics with the upbeat music sometimes and downbeat lyrics, but this is spot on. The music is as dark as or as opaque as the lyric. It's a thick synth web, and it's a thick. Not sure thick is the word, but it's still opaque. The lyrics makes no not one obvious meaning to be extracted. It's more reminiscent of his cut-up lyrics or his impressionistic images.
Some good points there, Chris. And with that, we end this last discussion that we had on the next day. Please remember to like and subscribe. We will continue our reverse David Bowie journey with discussions on reality next time. So please keep an eye out for that. And then it's only for us to say goodbye and thank you for watching.
Goodbye.
See you the next day.